It's all for the money. It's nothing else, just money.
It's only going to feed and help the politicians.
Carney has been excluded. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we have Mark Carney's conflicts of interest are so vast and so many that he is being excluded from over a dozen decisions being made in the government. Let's jump into this. Starting this episode off, I thought we'd start with the Canadian dollar. And what do we see here? This is a graph going back to 2009 all the way till today. And let's just look at this big hump here. What era was this? This is the Stephen Harper days. Stephen Harper steps down and Trudeau comes in right here. And what happens? This is the Liberal record here. And we can see Carney gets in here and it has not gone back up. It's only going down. This dovetails with what we see here being posted on this Carney footprint account, showing how many times Mark Carney's flown in the last month. 16 is the number, 38,000 kilometers, 150,000 liters of jet fuel, emitting over 450,000 kilograms of CO2. Here's all his flights: Dublin, Geneva, Ottawa, Vancouver, Nanaimo. What's interesting about this Nanaimo, he didn't announce this, so this isn't a part of anything, but he came to Vancouver to do that press conference. I believe his mother is in a care home in Nanaimo. That's why he would be, once again, visiting his mother on the taxpayer dime. Moving ahead, we're bringing back up this Polera data. This is a report that came out a day or two ago, and I showed some of this on the channel, but there's more panels on here I want to showcase. This one, we've got news sources comparing Canada to the United States. Thought this was pretty interesting. It shows television news reports, the top one here, 53% of Canadians versus 47% of Americans. You can see the gap here, +6 for Canada. So more Canadians are watching television news reports versus, well, this other stuff here. We've got radios, 27 versus 18. Print magazines. What's more interesting here is the online stuff. We've got social media, YouTube, 28% for Canada versus 33% for America, so +5. Same thing, social media, Facebook, 28 to 34, Instagram, 17 versus 24, TikTok, 11 versus 20%, X is 10 versus 14. And then we've got conversations with family, friends, and coworkers, 30% in Canada versus 25% in America. And when people are watching mainstream media like CBC and then they talk to their friends, that amplifies things. Pretty eye-opening data here. I mean, I'm not surprised. We know that Canadians are very gullible because they got tricked into voting for Mark Carney, and now he's not delivering on any of his promises. Moving ahead, we've got this one from the National Post. This is based off that story I showed yesterday. We've got Terry Newman posting this. Montreal bad guy here was a voluntary communist. This needs to get out there. I showed you those quotes that where he was criticizing Western conservatives. The guy was not a conservative. He was not right-wing. He was a far-left extremist communist. Of course, the mainstream media doesn't want to tell you that, but it's good to see this on the National Post. Moving ahead here in our headline story coming from the Toronto Star, Mark Carney sidelined from 17, at least 17, not just 17, at least 17 government deliberations because of corporate conflicts. The revelation is contained in letters that the Privy Council office sent to parliamentary committee that probed the screens that Carney set up. So it says, according to summary posted online by Parliament's ethics watchdog, Carney's staff are supposed to prevent him from being aware of or participating in any official matters or decision-making processes involving the interest in a list of 103 companies. How he gets around this, though, he just talks about general sectors versus specific companies. I mean, there's a loophole for all this stuff, but they know the optics of this, that he brought in his A-team. He's got Tim Hodgson and these other guys to come in and do these things for him, knowing exactly what Carney would do to boost his stock values and more the value of his Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1. The examples it gives here says the government could not disclose all details at each time of the screen has been used since Carney isn't allowed to know instances until whatever is being discussed has been finalized and made public. Those specified in the letter so far show that Carney has been prevented from being involved in the following. So basically, we're getting a delayed run out of what he's being involved in because he's not allowed to make decisions in this stuff. Well, then what use is he as prime minister? I mean, this is ridiculous. It says technical amendments to the Income Tax Act related to cross-border payments and taxation of trusts and other companies because of his interest in Stripe. Because of one of his companies, Carney Screen had direct engagement with the Trudeau government about the changes. So this is most likely talking about Stripe. And not only is Carney invested in Stripe, this is one of his self-governed, self-administered RRSP holdings that he administers himself. You can see shares of Stripe Inc. right there. This handful here, the 8 or 9 or so, these are the most important to him because he administers them himself. He wants to make sure he holds these. So most of his money is going to be right here. Now, the guy clearly has millions and millions and probably tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars because of all the stocks he holds in all these companies. He's not like he's putting $100 in all of these stocks. And we know Stripe's important to Carney because, well, he used to sit on the board of Stripe from 2021 to January 2025. The next one here, an unspecified policy impacting depreciation and taxable income for certain developers and property owners, which was actively considered ahead of the 2025 federal budget, but never implemented. Carney's screen was used because the policy could have disproportionately benefited or impact unnamed companies on Carney's prime minister list. 4 policies from the 2025 budget and the spring fiscal update to increase federal loans for housing ownership and rental unit construction could have benefited unnamed companies on Carney's screen. They're all Brookfield. Most of these are Brookfield. Here, we'll break these down. So this top one here, this is going to be Brookfield Properties. So it'll have something to do with one of these Brookfield real estate, Brookfield properties, all this stuff here. It's going to be one of these. The Brookfield has property assets all over the place. The next one here, 4 policies for federal loans, housing ownership, and rental unit construction. This is going to be 2 companies. It'll first be Sagan. Where is Sagan? There it is. Sagan Canada, which continues to operate as Canada's largest private sector residential mortgage insurer, providing mortgage default insurance, etc. This is most likely the company they're talking about here that would have benefited that one, which is a subsidiary of Brookfield. And the other one it talked about there is most likely Modulaire Group. The next one is a decision by Finance Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne to provide up to $3.1 billion to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation so it could maintain its pace of multi-unit mortgage loan insurance to support construction of new properties, which could have benefited companies on Carney's screen. This one also points to Sagan Mortgage Insurance. We've got a decision by Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson related to an effort by British Columbia's Powell River Energy, a subsidiary of Brookfield, where Carney was chair of the firm's global asset management branch to sell electricity to the U.S. for over 30 years. So that one tells us what it is. We don't have to guess on that one. Powell River, that one is over here, right in the top corner. Powell River Energy, Brookfield Renewables Hydropower. So this is the whole situation here. Big kerfuffle. They're trying to sell this electricity to America with this 30-year deal. And we've got measures unveiled in the spring fiscal update to make it easier for mortgage insurers to support loans for missing middle housing stock like triplexes and fourplexes. Carney wasn't involved because this could have disproportionately impact on unnamed companies. This one is once again Sagan Mortgage Insurance, which is number 46 on Mark Carney's conflict of interest list here. The government also revealed this week that Carney didn't take part in the creation of the new nuclear energy strategy and did not say why. Because Mark Carney makes direct money off of it. His Brookfield Global Transition Fund has Westinghouse, which is half owned by Brookfield and Cpac, and he gets 3% of the carried interest off that fund. So I'm not surprised that Tim Hodgson is running Shield for this because it's so apparently obvious what they're doing. Here he is launching this strategy from yesterday.
We are launching Canada's first national nuclear energy strategy. Canada is a tier 1 nuclear nation, but we've not had a national nuclear energy strategy in the past. That means in many ways this represents a new beginning. Our government is introducing a coordinated, targeted plan for the nuclear sector at home and abroad. A plan that will mean new tools, new partnerships, new builds, and most importantly, a new civilian nuclear renaissance for Canada.
That's right, a civilian renaissance. Okay. The worst part of this is I think we should be doing nuclear. I just don't think Carney should get stinking rich off of doing it. That's the problem.
It's a renaissance because this is not the start of something completely new. We are writing the next chapter in one of Canada's greatest industrial success stories.
At this point, I'd rather AI be our prime minister versus these clowns who are clearly just enriching themselves. Carney brought on this guy to run this whole thing through because he knew this was a massive conflict of interest and this is how he's going to make the most amount of money. He need one of his closest allies to do this for him, and that's what Tim Hodgson is doing. He's only useful for votes as per Carney's statement on the hot mic. Tim Hodgson is actually more useful than just votes because he's in on the strategy. Most of the other liberals probably have no idea about Carney's Brookfield Global Transition transition fund and all of that stuff. And while we're talking about Tim Hodgson, here we have him on CTV with Vasi Capellos talking about the MOU, the pipeline. Is it because this deadline's coming? Will there be a new pipeline coming?
Speaking of Alberta, Minister, before I let you go, I did want to ask you, July 1st is only about 10 days away, I think, not even if math is clearly not my strong suit. I did want to ask about what is an increasing amount of industry pushback to part of the MOU that your government signed with Alberta, and that is in particular around the Pathways carbon capture project, right? Mr. McKenzie, the CEO of Cenovus, gave a speech just this month basically saying, you know, financing that and the pipeline isn't doable, unfinanceable was the word that he used. Your government is already providing very significant tax credits for carbon capture. Are you willing to put more federal money to make sure that Pathways is realized?
So I would say that there are very productive conversations going on as we speak between the federal government, between the government of Alberta and the Pathways Alliance. We are working hard to get to a framework. That framework involves some support from the federal government, it involves some support from the Alberta government. And it involves some financial commitments by the Pathways Alliance.
I think Danielle Smith's got to stop going along with this stuff. They're using it to weaponize it against Pierre Poilievre, and this is bad for the country. She needs to stop embracing this carbon capture bullcrap because this is going to bankrupt Canada.
We've done the work. We think it's eminently financeable, and I'm not going to get in the middle of discussions, but I think you'll hear some good news in the not too distant future.
And I understand that you don't want to get in the middle of discussions, but I ask with great respect, Minister, there's already a lot of federal money that has been used to subsidize oil companies that have quite significant profits. They obviously don't think, and numerous CEOs have now said, that the economics of Pathways are there without significant taxpayer input. The question is a simple one. Are you willing to go beyond the current federal input into Pathways?
I'm not going to get in the middle of discussions that are going on right now. We have a clear framework that we're working on with the government of Alberta and Pathways. We will negotiate that, and when the discussions are done, we'll share that with the people of Canada and the citizens of Alberta.
I take your point on that, but I'm asking out of principle, right? Like what you're feeling as the Minister of Natural Energy is on a question that has been asked for years now about whether or not further taxpayer subsidies of oil companies are something that Canadians should be behind. Like, do you have a principled stance on whether or not more taxpayer money should go towards this project?
So my principled stance is we're going to do what's right for Canada. We're going to develop our resources in the most responsible way. When we do that, it will be a benefit to Canada. It will be a benefit to Canada economically. It'll be a benefit to Canada from a sovereignty perspective, and we will do it in a way that reduces emissions and gets us to net zero.
Net zero is a pie in the sky dream. It's never happening. These guys just enriching themselves off of it. We need a forensic audit on all these guys after they get thrown out of office and press charges for anyone that has done harm to our country and our economy intentionally. And speaking of causing harm to our economy, the Alto high-speed rail project.
The federal government is directing the company developing Canada's first high-speed rail line to consider changes to the route. The minister says they're responding to public input, but as Ashley Burke explained, some protesters want the project called off entirely.
Protesters trying to put the brakes on high-speed rail.
It's all for the money. It's nothing else, just money.
It's only going to feed and help the politicians and the business people that want to go from one hub to the other.
Some worry the proposed track would slice through their farms, properties, and communities, forcing them to give up land.
I understand the fear. It's kind of the fear of the unknown.
Canada's transport minister says after more than 330,000 people weighed in during consultations, he's now directing the developer to study a potential stop in Kingston, Ontario.
You think about people in Kingston who might want to go to a Blue Jay game or a Montreal Canadiens game and can be back at home in their bed by midnight. It will literally change life in those kinds of ways.
The original proposed plan was more direct from Toronto to Quebec City. Now Alto needs to look at dropping down to Kingston, which would make the trip longer and cost more to build.
Yes, there is additional cost with it, but there's increased ridership to compensate with the extra cost. I'm not going to go into more detail.
That's right. Add another one. Just keep adding cities to this. Have it go all over the place. Let's just get this thing up to $500 billion and completely ruin Canada's economy. Let's quadruple the price of food for this stupid high-speed rail project.
But the warm, fuzzy feeling is that economically it makes sense to have the station in Kingston.
But the new study doesn't mean property owners are breathing a sigh of relief. The old plan is still on the table.
Does it alleviate? It might for some. I think the hierarchy for those who are concerned about this project is still no alto.
The opposition wants the government to scrap the project that's estimated to cost up to $90 billion.
Conservatives would use the alto research money to take taxes off used cars.
Residents will start finding out in the fall if the train will cut through their properties. The transport minister says the government hopes to negotiate with property owners willing to sell, but will expropriate land if it needs to.
As in, they'll steal your land if you don't make a deal with them. When it comes down to it, Canada can't have high-speed rail. Our population is just too small. That's why it works in China. Well, they're a dictatorship as well, but their population's so big, it makes financial sense. It doesn't in Canada. Now, to end this episode off on a lighter note, this is from last week, but I thought this is important to show. This is from EU Parliament, where they have passed a law that there needs to be these deportation hubs to send people back that are illegally trying to come into Europe. And the vote passed. Shocking.
Adopted. The first reading of Parliament is closed. Okay, we move to the next item on the agenda, the report by...
It's so funny. You can see which ones voted against it, which ones voted for it.
Mrs. Brigmont on the EU-Pakistan Agreement modification of concessions on tariff rate quotes.
You hear that? They're chanting, send them home.
Vote on consent by roll call vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed.
They're still chanting it.
We move.
Oh, now they're chanting shame on you, the lefties.
To the... It's adopted.
Shame on these people for not understanding how life works. Like, shame on these lefties. They are destroying society. They don't even know what they're doing.